Caitlin Clark just changed the game again. But this time, it's not because of a three-pointer, a record-breaking night, or a viral highlight reel. It's because one of the most outspoken figures in American media, Dave Portnoy, just put something on the table that no one in women's sports ever imagined: a $100 million contract. You heard that right. $100 million. From the man who built Barstool Sports from his basement into a media empire. And the craziest part? He's not joking. For months, people have been talking about how Caitlin Clark deserves to be paid more. How her impact goes beyond basketball. How she's filling arenas, breaking viewership records, and doing numbers that even some NBA stars can't match. But until now, it was all talk. Then Dave Portnoy stepped in and turned talk into action. This isn't a publicity stunt. It's a statement. A shot across the bow of corporate sports. A message to the WNBA, the NCAA, and every brand that's been profiting off Caitlin's image while paying her a fraction of what she's worth. Dave Portnoy didn't offer her a few endorsement deals or a limited partnership. He offered her ownership, power, and control. He said, "If the system won't pay you what you deserve, I will." And that single sentence set the sports world on fire. Because suddenly, Caitlin Clark wasn't just an athlete anymore. She was a symbol. The face of a rebellion against decades of underpayment and underappreciation. When Portnoy made his announcement, social media exploded. Fans went wild. Reporters scrambled for statements. And behind the scenes, agents, sponsors, and league executives started panicking. If Caitlin Clark even considered accepting that deal, it wouldn't just disrupt women's basketball, it would blow up the entire structure of how women's sports are monetized. But to understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to look back at how Caitlin Clark got here. Because this isn't just about money. It's about a journey that redefined what female athletes could represent. Caitlin Clark isn't the kind of star that the system created. She's the one that broke it. From her college debut at Iowa, she was different. Confident, relentless, and fearless. A shooter with the swagger of Steph Curry and the court vision of Sue Bird. She wasn't playing to impress anyone. She was playing to dominate. And dominate she did. She shattered NCAA records, carried her team to historic wins, and turned every arena she entered into a sellout event. Even people who didn't watch women's basketball suddenly knew her name. Sponsors rushed in. TV networks adjusted schedules around her games. And when the WNBA finally drafted her, the league saw a surge in ticket sales and viewership that they hadn't seen in decades. But while her fame skyrocketed, her paycheck didn't. Her WNBA rookie salary? Just over $76,000. That's less than what some NBA benchwarmers make in a single quarter. And fans noticed. They started asking, how can someone generating millions in revenue be paid less than a mid-level influencer? And that's when Dave Portnoy saw his opening. He's always been a disruptor, the guy who never played by corporate rules. And when he saw Caitlin Clark dominating headlines while being underpaid, he knew exactly what to do. Turn her into a movement. So he made the offer. Loud, public, and impossible to ignore. He didn't just want Caitlin Clark to make more money. He wanted to expose how broken the system really is, and whether she accepts it or not. She's already changed the game forever. The moment Dave Portnoy's words hit the internet, chaos followed. Clips of his statement spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, hashtags like Caitlin100 million and the Portnoy deal were trending across X, Instagram, and TikTok. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some fans called him a hero. Others accused him of exploiting a movement. But one thing was clear. Everyone was talking about Caitlin Clark. And for Portnoy, that was the point. He didn't need the league's permission, the media's approval, or a boardroom's blessing. All he needed was attention. And Caitlin Clark was already the most powerful attention magnet in American sports. Reporters tried to reach her camp for a reaction. Her agents went silent. The WNBA offices refused to comment. ESPN panels debated for hours, speculating what might happen if she walked away from her rookie contract and joined forces with Barstool. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just a financial offer, it was a power move Imagine the statement it would make if the biggest star in women's basketball turned down the league that drafted her and chose to build something independent instead. It would tell every young female athlete watching that they don't have to play by the old rules anymore. That's what terrified the establishment, because the truth is, the WNBA had never had someone like Caitlin Clark before. Sure, they'd had stars, legends like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, and Candace Parker, but no one had ever shifted public interest the way she did. Caitlin wasn't just a player. She was an economist. Tickets, jerseys, sponsorships, streaming numbers, everything she touched turned to gold. And now, with Portnoy's offer on the table, the world was realizing just how much gold there really was. But there was another layer to this story that few people noticed at first. Dave Portnoy wasn't just trying to make a statement about women's sports. He was also making a statement about the media empire he'd built. For years, Barstool had been dismissed by traditional journalists as loud, controversial, and unprofessional. Yet here it was, standing toe-to-toe with billion-dollar corporations, making offers that even networks like ESPN couldn't ignore. It was the kind of move that rewrote the definition of influence, and Caitlin Clark was at the center of it all. As the debate raged on, her teammates tried to keep things normal. Practices continued. Games were played. Reporters kept asking the same question: will Caitlin respond? But Caitlin stayed silent. Not a single public statement. Not a tweet. Not a press release. Nothing. And that silence only made the story bigger. Because when the most talked about athlete in the country refuses to talk, everyone else fills in the blanks. Some said she was negotiating behind closed doors. Others claimed she was insulted by the offer. A few even speculated that Portnoy's proposal was part of a larger plan to create a rival league. Whatever the truth was, one thing became undeniable. Caitlin Clark's name had become bigger than the league she played for, and that's when the panic started inside the WNBA's executive offices. They saw what was happening. They saw sponsors hesitating to renew deals, waiting to see what Caitlin would do. They saw how one player's decisions were shaping the future of their entire business model. Behind the scenes, urgent meetings were held. Marketing teams drafted new strategies. Executives discussed increasing salaries or restructuring endorsement rules. Anything to keep Caitlin happy. And, more importantly, loyal. Because if she left, others might follow. And that's the nightmare scenario no one in power wanted to admit. Dave Portnoy hadn't just offered Caitlin Clark $100 million. He'd opened Pandora's box. He'd revealed to every athlete, male or female, that in the age of social media, the power doesn't belong to the leagues anymore. It belongs to the people who can command attention. And Caitlin Clark commanded it better than anyone. Caitlin Clark's silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. While the internet screamed her name from every corner, she didn't need to say a single word. Every hour she stayed quiet. The headlines got louder. Every day she refused to respond. The value of her voice went up. This wasn't just a sports story anymore. It was a cultural moment. It was about money, media, and power, and how a 22-year-old rookie had somehow taken control of all three. Inside the WNBA, panic turned into pressure. Sponsors wanted answers. Networks were calling daily. League officials started drafting statements about supporting women's equality and valuing player empowerment, hoping to calm the storm. But deep down, they knew those words meant nothing if Caitlin Clark decided to walk away. Behind closed doors, executives whispered about emergency meetings with her management. Rumors spread that league representatives were offering her new endorsement opportunities and personal partnerships to keep her in the fold. Anything to make her feel valued. But Caitlin had learned something powerful: leverage. For the first time in women's sports, an athlete wasn't chasing the league. The league was chasing her. And that shift terrified people. Every major sports network ran daily segments dissecting what this could mean. One analyst called it the most disruptive sports moment since NIL changed college athletics. Another compared it to when LeBron James left Cleveland for Miami, not for the move itself, but for the message it sent. Because Caitlin Clark wasn't just negotiating for herself, she was setting a precedent. Dave Portnoy knew that too. He kept feeding the flames online, posting updates, teasing the deal, and doubling down in interviews. He said things like, "If the WNBA doesn't see her worth, someone else will." And that line echoed everywhere. Fans started questioning the system itself. Why did it take a controversial media mogul to offer what the league should have offered in the first place? Why was the sport's biggest star being treated like a marketing accessory instead of a foundational asset? Every question chipped away at the WNBA's credibility. Meanwhile, Caitlin kept doing what she always did, performing, dropping triple-doubles, filling arenas, making people care. Every shot she hit was another reminder that her influence wasn't just hype, it was real. And that's when something remarkable happened. Big brands, not just sports companies, but global corporations started circling. Nike, Gatorade, Amazon, even Netflix, reportedly, began exploring ways to build multi-platform partnerships around her. It wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about storytelling, influence, and the kind of fame that transcends the court. Caitlin Clark had become a brand ecosystem of her own. But as her profile grew, so did the tension, because everyone wanted a piece. The WNBA, the media, the sponsors, and now Dave Portnoy. And Caitlin knew she had to move carefully. One wrong decision could make her look ungrateful. One emotional response could make her look impulsive. But by saying nothing, she held all the cards. Her silence made her unpredictable. And unpredictability in business is power. While reporters begged for comments, she was having quiet conversations with her team. Strategic ones about legacy, timing, and the kind of platform she wanted to build for the next generation. Caitlin Clark wasn't thinking about the next contract. She was thinking about the next decade. And that's when the story took its first real twist. Because just as the debate started to cool, a leaked message appeared online, supposedly from someone inside Barstool Sports. It hinted that Portnoy's offer wasn't just real, it was already formalized. A draft deal with performance bonuses, ownership clauses, and a plan to launch an entirely new media-driven women's sports division. The post went viral instantly. People started claiming Caitlin was days away from walking away from the WNBA, that she'd already agreed to meet Portnoy in person, that this wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about building a new empire, and whether the rumor was true or not didn't matter. Because in the world of modern media, perception is reality, and right now, Caitlin Clark was the most powerful person in sports, not because of what she said, but because of what everyone else believed she might do. The leaked deal changed everything. Within minutes, every major sports outlet jumped on it. ESPN broke into live programming. Fox Sports aired emergency coverage. Twitter turned into a war zone of opinions and speculation. Was it true? Was Caitlin really about to walk away from the WNBA for Dave Portnoy's $100 million offer? No one could confirm it, but no one could deny it either. And that uncertainty was gasoline on the fire. Portnoy, of course, knew exactly what he was doing. He thrived on chaos. Every headline, every controversy, it all fed his brand. The more people talked, the more powerful he became. He went live on his own platform, smirking like a man who had already won. "Let's just say," he teased, "if the WNBA doesn't appreciate greatness, others will." That single line sent shockwaves through the sports world. The WNBA's PR department scrambled to contain the situation. They released a carefully worded statement denying any knowledge of Caitlin leaving, calling the rumor unsubstantiated and misleading. But the damage was already done, because when a billion-dollar corporation starts responding to a rumor, that rumor suddenly feels real. Inside locker rooms across the league, players whispered to each other, could she really do it? Would she risk everything for independence? Some quietly admired her for even being in that position. Others resented her for overshadowing the league. And then came the networks. Every talk show, every podcast, every sports panel had the same topic: Caitlin Clark and the $100 million offer. Analysts debated her every move. Some called her a genius for staying silent. Others accused her of fueling chaos for attention. But what no one could deny was that she had become the single most talked about athlete in America. Even NBA players weighed in. Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Damian Lillard all praised her talent and impact, but none dared to comment on the deal directly. They knew this wasn't just about Caitlyn, it was about the future of sports power itself. Meanwhile, Portnoy kept posting cryptic messages. "History is written by the bold," one read. Another said, "Sometimes you have to burn the system down to rebuild it, right?" He was positioning himself as a revolutionary, a savior of underpaid athletes, a man ready to rewrite the playbook. And the craziest part? People were starting to believe him. Viewers began to question not just the WNBA, but the entire system of sports pay. They dug up salary comparisons, endorsement figures, and profit margins. They realized how massive the gap truly was, not because of talent, but because of outdated economics and gender bias. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about Caitlyn Clark. It was about fairness, equality, and the broken business model of women's sports. And for once, those discussions weren't happening in boardrooms or quiet conferences. They were happening everywhere. Online, at dinner tables, in classrooms. Caitlyn Clark had unintentionally become the face of a movement. And the WNBA knew it couldn't control the narrative anymore. That's when they made their boldest move yet. They arranged a national press conference. The commissioner herself was set to speak, along with several high-ranking officials. Their goal was simple: take back control. They wanted to show confidence, authority, and unity. But when the cameras rolled, the questions weren't about the league's growth or its future. Every single reporter wanted to know one thing: what about Caitlyn Clark? And when the commissioner dodged the question, the headlines wrote themselves. WNBA refuses to address Caitlyn Clark controversy. League under fire for silence on 100 Minuters offer. Fans demand answers. Every attempt to regain control only made things worse. Then, almost as if on cue, Portnoy struck again. He posted a video titled "The Truth About the Caitlyn Clark Deal." In it, he confirmed that an official offer had indeed been drafted, and that he had personally reached out to Caitlyn's team weeks earlier. He didn't reveal details, but he smiled as he said, "Let's just say the ball's in her court now." That was all it took. Every outlet replayed the clip on loop. Every sports account shared it. Every fan had an opinion. And for the first time, the WNBA wasn't the main story in women's basketball. Caitlyn Clark and Dave Portnoy were. But as the noise reached a breaking point, Caitlyn finally decided it was time to speak. Her team announced a press conference. The date was set. Cameras were booked. Journalists from around the world requested access. No one knew what she was going to say. Would she accept the offer and walk away from the WNBA forever? Or would she stay and prove that some things are bigger than money? The sports world held its breath, because whatever Caitlyn Clark said next would shape the future of women's basketball forever. The world waited. Cameras clicked. Microphones lined up. Every sports fan, journalist, and commentator sat on edge as Caitlyn Clark walked onto the stage. No entourage, no dramatics, just Caitlyn, calm, confident, and ready to take back the narrative. She looked out at the sea of cameras, took a breath, and started to speak. "I've heard everything that's been said over the past few weeks," she began, "and I want to set the record straight." The room went silent. "I'm grateful for every opportunity, every conversation, every offer that's come my way. But this isn't just about a number. It's about purpose." She paused, letting her words sink in. Women's basketball doesn't need to be rescued. It needs to be respected. It was short, sharp, and it hit like thunder. She didn't name Dave Portnoy directly. She didn't confirm or deny the offer. Instead, she flipped the entire conversation on its head. Because what everyone expected, a yes or no answer, was too small for what Caitlyn represented. She wasn't just turning down or accepting money. She was redefining value itself. And with that, she walked off stage. No questions, no drama, just control. The reaction was instant. Applause erupted online. Fans called her the classiest athlete of her generation. Even critics couldn't help but admire how she handled it. Because in an age where controversy rules headlines, Caitlin Clark just proved that silence and composure can be the loudest weapons of all. But while the public celebrated her grace, behind the scenes, Dave Portnoy wasn't done yet. He released another statement hours later. Caitlin Clark made her choice, he said. But make no mistake, the revolution she started isn't stopping. And he was right. Because even though Caitlin didn't take the deal, the conversation it sparked refused to die. Sponsors, leagues, and networks were now under pressure to rethink how they treat women athletes. Suddenly, discussions about pay equity weren't someday issues. They were right-now issues. Caitlin's decision didn't kill the movement. It gave it fuel. Weeks passed, but the aftershocks didn't stop. The WNBA saw a surge in attendance unlike anything in its history. Caitlin's games were selling out in minutes. Merchandise was flying off the shelves, and the league's social media following exploded. Ironically, the same controversy that once threatened the WNBA was now saving it. Every major brand wanted a piece of Caitlin. But this time she was choosing carefully. No quick deals, no flashy sponsorships. She wanted partnerships that aligned with her values: empowerment, equality, and growth. And while she was busy dominating on the court, Portnoy moved forward with his own plan. He announced the creation of Barstool Athletics, a media sports hybrid aimed at promoting independent athletes and creators. His pitch was simple: we don't need leagues. We build our own. It was bold, reckless, and pure Portnoy. But here's the thing, it started working. Former college stars, semi-pro athletes, even retired players began reaching out. They wanted in. They wanted freedom, exposure, and fair pay. And just like that, the system began to fracture. The traditional sports hierarchy, leagues, agencies, corporations, suddenly had competition from a man with a phone, a microphone, and a defiant idea. The Caitlin Clark offer had sparked something far bigger than anyone imagined. For the first time in decades, athletes were questioning who really owned their image, their time, and their legacy. Months later, as the season wound down, Caitlin sat down for her first long-form interview since the controversy. The host asked her a simple question: "Do you regret not taking the $100 million deal?" Caitlin smiled. "No, because it was never about money. It was about impact." She went on to explain how the entire ordeal opened doors, not just for her, but for every young girl who ever dreamed of playing basketball professionally. "I wanted people to see that we don't have to choose between being athletes and being powerful. We can be both." Her words carried weight, not because they were poetic, but because they were true. By standing her ground, Caitlin Clark had changed how people viewed female athletes, not as side stories, but as central figures in the evolution of modern sports. And even Dave Portnoy, in his own way, played a part in that transformation. His outrageous offer forced the world to face a question it had avoided for too long. What is talent really worth? The answer? Whatever the world is finally ready to pay, and respect. The $100 million figure was symbolic. It wasn't about numbers. It was about breaking the silence, breaking the limits, and breaking the old system. Caitlin Clark didn't need to take the money to prove her worth. The offer itself proved it. By the end of that year, she was more than a basketball player. She was a cultural icon, a businesswoman, and a voice for a new generation of athletes who refused to play small. Her legacy wasn't written in contracts or sponsorships. It was written in change, because sometimes the most powerful move isn't taking the deal. It's showing the world you were never desperate for it. And that's exactly what Caitlin Clark did. Caitlin Clark didn't just make history on the court. She rewrote the rules off it. Dave Portnoy may have started the fire, but she turned it into a spotlight. And now, every athlete watching knows one thing for sure: you don't have to wait for the system to value you. You can create your own. What do you think about Caitlin's decision? Was she right to walk her own path? Let us know in the comments below, because this story isn't over. It's only the beginning.